Hi, I'm Dr. Hayo Kim with the Kim Center for Social Balance, introducing you to the LEAPS Sexual Harassment Prevention Toolkit for Employers. Why use the LEAPS toolkit? LEAPS works because it uses systematic data collection to drive targeted strategies that generate measurable change over time. This in turn empowers you to tangibly transform the heart of your workplace. And it is one of the few resources that allows you to tailor your approach with tools that fit your needs. The toolkit's various sections give you key materials such as how employers benefit by preventing sexual harassment, legal requirements, and templates and strategies to get you started right away. This toolkit is a call to action. Together, let's disrupt a relentless cycle and build ecosystems that encourage workers of all backgrounds to thrive. Many employers think that just doing the bare minimum is enough, but this attitude exposes you to risks that no organization needs to accept as just costs of doing business. Operationalizing sexual harassment prevention helps ensure that your organization is sustainable and competitive for the long term. That's because a healthy ecosystem heightens your ability to recruit and retain talent, inspire worker productivity and innovativeness, and elevate your brand and reputation in the eyes of clients, customers, and investors. Plus, you protect yourself from expenses that cost employers millions of dollars every year in lawsuits, settlements, and fines. There's also a serious consequence that employers often overlook: turnover. Employees who experience harassment are almost 7 times more likely to change jobs. This can mean recruitment and training costs up to 20% of one employee's annual salary, or 213% if that person is managerial or professional staff. Even when employees don't leave, a culture that tolerates harassment damages worker health and well being, productivity, and team cohesion and collaboration. Building or streamlining your processes may seem daunting, but being proactive now is more than worth the effort. Whether you're big or small, you'll be firmly positioning your organization at the leading edge of growth and sustainability.
Kelly Jenkins Pultz here to talk further about the laws, legal definitions, and at a minimum, your legal obligations. As your firm develops a policy to prevent and respond to the harm caused by sexual harassment, it's important that you understand the state and federal laws that apply to your organization. The legal definition of sexual harassment takes an expansive view of the number of situations and relationships among people in an organization that could be covered. In addition to situations between workers and supervisors, people at every level in your organization, including board members, clients, customers, and interns, deserve to work in an environment free from hostile working conditions based on their gender. Note that we aren't talking about sex. We're talking about an abuse of power. Sexual harassment is often used as a tool to make someone uncomfortable, ashamed, or fearful. In an organization, sexual harassment detracts from mission and purpose. It requires an intentional strategy involving transparent input from all corners of an organization and safe avenues for open dialogue. In addition to defining sexual harassment broadly, California law also mandates interactive training for supervisors within 6 months of hire or promotion and retraining every 2 years. For non-supervisory employees, the law requires 1 hour of interactive training. Training is important because it helps everyone understand what is and what is not appropriate, and it lays a foundation for dialogue and conversation that will help resolve situations if and when sexual harassment issues arise. SB 553 also requires employers to establish a workplace violence prevention plan that extends protections against sexual harassment even further. An effective sexual harassment policy will be an important centerpiece within an employer's workplace violence prevention plan. Policy and prevention are essential, but the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission also requires employers to take action when sexual harassment is reported. Investigate and take action immediately. And most importantly, do not retaliate against the complainant. This toolkit will help organizations take sexual harassment prevention and policy obligations seriously, and it offers a significant competitive edge over those who treat it as a cost of business or worse, refuse to acknowledge it or hold themselves accountable. Benefits for strong sexual harassment policies include reduction in liability risk, preservation of human and monetary resources, and positive reputation with clients and customers.
Hi, this is Jessie from our Beretta Group. We know that workplaces may feel hesitant to risk uncovering difficult issues, but doing this allows you to be proactive in addressing those issues. You can't make effective decisions without having the data. The first step to preventing harassment in the workplace is assessing the extent and/or the risk of harassment currently in the work environment. You can do a self-assessment with tools provided in the toolkit, or you can hire outside experts. Whichever you choose, the assessment should be adapted to your specific business and work environment. The assessment may include any of these, or ideally all of the following: a climate check that assesses the workplace environment and practices that may lead to higher risk for sexual harassment, such as employees working in isolation, working alone with clients or contractors, or having night shifts. A data review of current policies, trainings, past reports of sexual harassment, and how those were handled, and information from employees, ideally through a confidential survey that asks about their knowledge of company policy, whether they know how to make a report and who to make it to, and their experience of sexual harassment or witnessing sexual harassment, and their perceived level of safety in the workplace. Now that you have the data, you'll need to interpret it and report on it. This doesn't have to be fancy or a high-level data analysis. You just need to get everything you've learned in one place so that you know where your workplace stands and you can take action to make improvements where you need them. Once you have all the responses, you can look for trends that allow you to identify and prioritize problem areas. And then be transparent and report the results that you learned, along with an improvement plan. After identifying the issues, make an action plan to prioritize the most urgent ones and/or those your organization has the capacity to address quickly. This is best done by a group of employees who might be a mix of staff and supervisors or from different areas within your organization. Your action plan should include a long-term vision for addressing and preventing sexual harassment and discrimination, clear and achievable goals based on the needs identified in the assessment, clearly defined roles for who will do what to achieve those goals, and accountability measures that show whether or not you're achieving the goals that were set.
I'm Michelle Mullen with Girl Scouts San Diego. After engaging in data-driven planning and your action plan is finalized, the next and most important step is implementation and monitoring. To do that, create an implementation plan that identifies the who, what, when, where, and how you will reach your goals. Involve employees in developing that implementation plan so they too can understand the action plan goals. If you are in a unionized workplace, communicate with union leaders for commitment to those goals as well. In the implementation plan, be sure that you're including a communication strategy to ensure that staff are involved in the action and implementation planning, are well informed, and know the progress toward the goals. Over the course of implementation, you'll want to do ongoing assessment against the baseline to measure progress in areas like compliance, reduction in harassment claims, and cultural shift. We suggest doing this annually across the organization. You should recognize that it's possible that reported incidents of sexual harassment might actually go up as you begin to build trust and action around complaints, and this could be an indicator of employees feeling secure about reporting. Think about it through the lens of a continuous improvement cycle. Use that continuous improvement cycle to measure and document your progress and to move forward with new goals and strategies as the organization evolves in this area. So assess or reassess, set goals, implement, and measure, and then do it all over again. We cannot underscore enough how important it is to be systematic and intentional when implementing the action plan, including communication. We all know that a roadmap without good execution does not shift culture and will ultimately be a waste of valuable time.
The LEAP Sexual Harassment Toolkit outlines key components in addressing sexual harassment through creating an organizational climate and culture, incorporating formal and informal responses. It is these responses that strengthen how readily a business can respond to sexual harassment and also benefits your business's strategic long-term vision and sustainability goals. In this section, you will gain information on, first, developing clear protocols and communication in sexual harassment prevention, reporting, and investigation, responding from a trauma-informed lens, encourage use of language for framing sexual harassment in the workplace, both written and reinforced verbally, how language access, workplace accommodations, and clearly written policies and procedures promote workplace inclusivity and sexual harassment prevention and intervention. Moreover, opportunities to incorporate personnel as part of the solution beyond required sexual harassment trainings. Lastly, this section will share a pathway for leaders to receive feedback from staff on workplace safety. This section is intentionally developed to be a resource for employers to continue to construct and affirm their workplace culture, irrespective of sector or business size, to be a leader in their community. The most successful organizations embed accountability into their systems. This should include consistent self-evaluation for all leadership and departments responsible for worker well-being.
Hello, I'm Linda Kavanaugh, retired Vice President of Human Resources. I'm here to share strategies for sexual harassment prevention and intervention. Let's start with the hiring and onboarding process. Proactive systems promote healthy workplace cultures, discuss expectations for respectful interactions during interviews and the onboarding process, include information about reporting sexual harassment and discrimination during the onboarding process, to signal that your organization takes these situations seriously and has a zero tolerance policy. Be sure to include copies of the policies in your employee handbook and to go over procedures for reporting, witnessing, or experiencing sexual harassment or hostility verbally. Training requirements and implementation. Effective training covers sexual harassment behaviors, reporting procedures, manager responsibilities, respect for all individuals, and prohibits against retaliation. Be sure to meet the minimum legal requirements for the content and frequency of training as defined under the Fair Employment and Housing Act and Title VII of the Federal Civil Rights Act of 1964. These include types of conduct considered sexual harassment and examples to clarify, remedies available, strategies to prevent sexual harassment, supervisors' obligation to report harassment, resources for victims of sexual harassment, including to whom they should report it, how employers must correct harassing behavior, what to do if a supervisor is personally accused of harassment, and elements of an effective anti-harassment policy and how to use it. Finding the right training is important. The effectiveness of any training increases when it is engaging. Different learning styles are considered in the delivery. Employees can apply what they've learned to their specific workplace and role. And the content is backed up by action your organization's leadership does. That is walking the talk. There are free and low-cost trainings available. You can find training suggestions in the resources section of this toolkit.
Hi, I'm Anna Marie Montesina Till with Rise San Diego. As you think through and begin developing policies and procedures for addressing and preventing sexual harassment within your teams and workplaces, you'll find there's an enormous variety of resources available online for further reading and consideration. So, where do you start? In this LEAP Sexual Harassment Toolkit for Employers, we've identified a few such agencies and guides, workshops, and reports to help jumpstart your research and further inform your efforts. These resources fall across 9 categories, each of which plays a key role in understanding an employer's legal responsibilities for creating workplace cultures free from sexual harassment. These categories also focus on trauma-informed and human-centered considerations for creating thoughtful, inclusive, and intentional policies within the workplace. Here you'll find links to more information on workers' rights, models for developing sexual harassment and anti-discrimination policies, guidance on inclusive language and policies, certified sexual harassment training opportunities, and information on workplace culture, peer advocates, restorative justice, and trauma-informed workspaces. As new and updated resources become available, it's our hope to continually update this section to offer employers the most relevant and accessible information available.
When it comes to sexual harassment prevention, fear is a strong barrier to resolution. Employers fear legal risks and workers fear retaliation. But when we work together, we are strong. We can build ecosystems where everyone receives the respect, dignity, and inclusion they deserve. Thank you for your leadership.